Hello there. This is the second time that I am filming this video. Had a bit of a technical snafu that was entirely my fault. I had this video, the first version of it, filmed, completely edited, ready to upload, and then things corrupted. So we're doing this again. This is going to be a bit of a different video than I generally make, but I was definitely in the mood to make something like this, and I've definitely been inspired by Hannah Louise Poston, who is one of my favorite YouTubers, when she makes these videos, talking about things that have brought her joy recently or what's cheering her up in the moment. I will put in the caveat, I'm not in a place where I really, I'm not in a low place where I really need cheering up, but these are just things that have brought me a lot of joy recently, that have really added a lot of zest to my life, and I wanted to talk to you about them today as a way to ease back into video making. I've had a lot going on in my life at the moment, and so this has taken a back seat, but I'm definitely in the mood to start making again. So without further ado, let's talk about the things that have really been cheering me up recently. And I guess the first thing that I'll mention is actually the camera that I'm filming on. This is a new camera that I got myself. It's my first, I guess, YouTube camera, if you will. I've just been filming on my phone since I started, which has been really great, but I felt like it was time to upgrade and have a separate camera to film on. So the video quality is a lot nicer, and mainly for me, the audio quality is a lot nicer. I am naturally a very soft-spoken person, and definitely had comments where people were saying that it was hard to hear me. So enjoying the much nicer built-in speakers on this camera, and also really enjoying how small and compact and easy to use this camera is. It's the Canon PowerShot V10 vlogging camera. Really great to use, really easy to use. Not sponsored in any way. I bought this with my own money. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how it helps me create videos in the future. So that is the first thing that has been cheering me up. And the next thing has been writing. My reading has definitely taken a back seat recently, and writing has sort of come to the forefront. I've really been inspired to write recently, and I feel like I just have all of these ideas just pouring out of me, and I'm kind of just struggling to keep up and write at least a snippet of them down so I can come back and remember them later. For writing specifically, I've really enjoyed having a much larger notebook. This is my current writing notebook. My previous writing notebooks have been much smaller, sort of like the standard moleskin size journal, which has been fine, but I'm just finding that the larger amount of physical space in this journal has really, I don't know, it feels like it's subtly given me more permission to write more. I think the mindset that this journal has sort of allowed me or helped me to take has just been letting go and allowing myself be in the space of this journal. Not being precious with it, writing down, snippets, quotes, fragments, ideas, and not worrying about format or where I was writing it. And I've brewed up a whole list of topics or snippets that I want to turn into personal essays or short stories. And I've just been scribbling down pretty much anything that comes to mind in this notebook, and that has just been very freeing and really lovely. All of which has accumulated in about 40 handwritten pages in this journal that will eventually be turned into something. Oddly enough, I feel like the notebook that I'm currently using has also started to help me deconstruct some internal roadblocks that I've had around creativity, mainly this notion that whatever I write has to be linear, it has to be A to Z, it has to be formatted, essay just coming out of my brain and only needing a few tweaks afterwards, which for most people is really not the case. And it's definitely not the case for me, but I was holding myself to that standard, and that was getting in the way of me creating. I feel like I've been having a lot of revelations recently around writing and learning about myself as a writer, and being able to look at these snippets, fragments, quotes, that I'm putting down on a page as actual writing. I feel like I've always struggled to call myself a writer, and even now I still struggle to call myself a writer. Getting to see the ideas that I've been writing about in this notebook really start to blossom and feel more realized and actualized, and having most of them start out as just little fragments or sentences that I wrote down on a whim, and going back to those and feeling inspired again and expanding on them. I feel like I'm learning to give myself more credit as far as how I tend to write and tend to sort of creatively work, realizing that the romanticized ideal that I hold myself to in my head is not doing me any favors, and I just need to take a step back and recognize myself for who I am and the creative that I am, and allowing that part of myself to come forward and feel authentic and genuine, and doing that, or practicing doing that, because believe me, I'm not all the way there yet, but in practicing doing that, I have felt so much more creative than I have, I think, in my life, and it's a wonderful feeling. I started using the program Scrivener recently, which is a commonly used program for writers. It's really helpful to help organize notes, research different plot points, characters. Again, not sponsored at all. I actually bought this for myself at the beginning of this year, and I'm only now starting to use it in August. But I've been doing a bit of writing in there, transferring some of my initial notes in my current writing notebook into there to work on, and being able to see everything in front of me, all of these snippets that I've been working on, or paragraph here or there. Getting to see it sort of all starting to pile up in front of me, and I haven't even transferred all of the notes from this current notebook into there, is really affirming in a very wonderful way of having the actual, I guess, proof in a way in front of my eyes, showing my brain, look, you've been writing. It may have been in fragments and snippets, but you've been writing, and it makes it much harder for my brain to be mean to itself and self-critical when it's right there in front of my face. So that has been really great. I definitely plan on sort of in the next week or so going through my current writing notebook, but then also going through some of my previous writing notebooks and looking through to see if there are any ideas that I might want to take note of and put into Scrivener for a future project, possibly. I've just been really enjoying the software, really enjoying how it is supporting my creativity at the moment, and also how it's helping me prove myself wrong in a way. Again, having the ability to have a chunk of what I've currently been working on in front of me and seeing how much it actually is, and seeing that, no, there's actually something here, has been so affirming. And I feel like the past several weeks I've been doing a lot of reflecting on myself as a writer and as a creative. I'm finding myself coming back to a lot of the thoughts that I expressed in my "You don't have to be perfect in order to write" video, which if you haven't seen, I will link up in the cards if you would like to go give it a watch. It's a video essay on writing and perfectionism and how I'm trying to reframe that this year and going forward. But definitely coming back to a lot of those thoughts that I was talking about in that video. I definitely felt a very strong sense of creativity and wanting to break down sort of my own perfectionism at the beginning of the year when I put out that video. And I feel like now at this point in the year, I am in a bit more of a place to actually start implementing that, practicing giving myself permission to play creatively without shame, of seeing the little bits and fragments that I have put on the paper as actual writing, and whether or not it gets me anywhere, whether or not it turns into anything that ends up being published or that other people see is irrelevant. It's part of my process, it's part of the journey, it's part of what's getting me to wherever I'm going as a writer. Even if it is just practice, even if it is just play, that's still writing, and I'm learning to see that as part of my process and learning to have that help affirm myself as a writer. I feel like I've been using my current writing notebook as a space where I'm allowing myself to be creatively messy. Having it be a space where I'm allowing myself to be creatively messy, where I'm not putting up guardrails on my own creativity, not setting up these strict parameters for what I'm allowed to put on the page. I've been practicing letting myself just be on the page without judgment or shame, and it has brought me so much joy recently. And in doing all of that, I feel like I am starting to much better understand myself as a writer, learning to be much better at listening to what's coming out of me creatively, themes that I'm currently drawn to, what I'm drawn to create at the moment, all of which has really started to help me take myself more seriously as a writer, which I don't think I've really ever done before, and so far has been a very powerful experience. Which leads me to the next section of things that are bringing me joy. My partner and I were talking one night a couple weeks ago, and he asked me what was something that was on my bucket list that I would like to tick off before the end of this year. And I thought about it, and I said, I really want to take a solo trip this year. I didn't have the guts to do it when I was studying abroad back in 2016. I feel like I'm in a place now where I'd be willing to do that. And so that definitely planted a seed that very quickly blossomed. So I ended up booking a week-long trip for myself, and I've decided that I'm going to dedicate it to mainly writing, but also to being creatively inspired. I think for me, the idea of having a trip somewhere be solely dedicated to writing, in my mind initially, I thought, only real writers do that. And then I thought, well, aren't I a real writer? So friends, I will be taking a week-long writing trip in October to Venice, Italy. And if you can hear it in my voice, I can't stop smiling about it. Like, I am... Whenever I think about it, I just get the biggest grin on my face, and I can't stop smiling. And it's honestly very hard for me to talk about it without squealing a little bit. So I'm trying to rein myself in here. Sort of immediately after I made the decision and I had booked my tickets, I felt this just deep sense of peace and joy and relief inside me that I'm not yet able to put fully into words. It feels like a huge affirmation of a life passion that I have struggled to affirm. I think I'm still processing in many ways the amount of joy that I have just thinking about this trip, but also the level of inner peace that I'm experiencing as a result of it already is kind of indescribable to me. I know that I am very lucky and privileged to be able to do this for myself as a writer, but if anything, take this as permission to do something that you haven't yet, that affirms your passion and your sense of creativity and your sense of purpose in creating. Taking a week-long writing trip is by no means the only way to do this for yourself. It's the way that I'll be doing it in a couple months here, but by no means is it the only way. I will of course be documenting at least part of that trip and making a video about it, but honestly it has me buzzing whenever I think about it, and so I wanted to mention it. The next thing that has been bringing me a lot of joy is a TV show. Now, most of the time I actually don't watch movies or TV. I will sort of go through phases where I watch mainly movies, but it's kind of rare for me to get into a TV show. But the second season of one of my and my partner's favorite TV shows, Made in Abyss, came out recently, and so we sat down to watch the entire season together, and it was phenomenal. Oh, it was so good. This TV show, this anime, is based off of the manga by, I apologize, I'm likely going to butcher this man's name, Akihito Tsukushi, based on the manga that he writes and illustrates. Now, I will warn you, this is a series where, while there are child protagonists, this is by no means a children's show. There are definitely a lot of darker themes that are explored in this television show. In this show, we're following a young girl named Riko who lives in a town that surrounds the abyss, a seemingly endless hole that goes to the center of the earth. Each of the levels of the abyss have different environments, different monsters, different relics and treasures, the majority of them being incredibly dangerous. The orphanage that Riko was raised in specializes in teaching the orphans to navigate and survive the abyss and explore and come back with relics that they find. They have a color-coded ranking system of whistles that is based on how far down you have gone in the abyss, come back, and survived, with the white whistles being the most advanced. Now, Rika's mother is a very famous white whistle who has descended to a part of the abyss that no one has come back from and no one has heard from her in many years. And so Riko, inspired by her mother, has decided to traverse the abyss herself and find her. She's accompanied by her friend Reg, who is a semi-human, not entirely sure. He is from the abyss, has turned up sort of on the shores of the outside of the abyss with no memory of who he is, where he's come from. And so he would also like to go to the center of the abyss to find out who he is. So these two set off together at the beginning of season 1. As they head further and further into the abyss, things get more and more difficult, more and more hairy, more and more dark. I won't say anything plot-wise about the second season that just came out because I don't want to spoil anything, but my boyfriend and I adored it, and we were talking about it afterwards, and both of us concluded that this series is very likely to go down as a masterpiece within anime and manga. It is incredible. The storytelling is really nuanced, really interesting. One of the things that I think the creator does really well is his villains, or his antagonists rather. They are incredibly nuanced. They are not just, you know, the cookie cutter kind of bad guy antagonist. They are very complex, and in many ways you can see the reasons behind their actions. You can even empathize with them in some ways. I will definitely give heavy content warnings for violence, gore, blood, and some body horror as well for this series. However, if that is something you think you can handle, I would highly recommend that you check out this series. I think the storytelling in this work is phenomenal. The animation is also gorgeous, particularly at the top of my mind, season 2 that just came out was really stunning, as well as the movies that have come out as well. The creator himself is part of the production team that is adapting the manga to the screen, which is really cool. And also, this is apparently the creator's first major work, which is, it blows my mind. It really does. He also apparently does all of his own writing, all of his own illustrating. He does not have a large team supporting him like most manga artists do. And at the moment, I feel pretty safe in saying that this series is likely to go down as a masterpiece. So highly recommend checking that out if that is something within your wheelhouse to watch. And yeah, I will be thinking about season 2 for quite a long time. The next thing on my list that is bringing me a lot of joy at the moment is sewing. I finally bit the bullet and started sewing recently. My lovely partner, bless him, got me a sewing machine for my birthday last year, and it's only been in the past month or so that I have started using it. And it's one of those situations where I'm definitely kicking myself for not starting it sooner because I'm really, really enjoying it. Learning how to make my own clothes has been a goal of mine for quite a long time, so being able to actually, you know, get in and actualize that dream has been really lovely. So far, I have made a pair of very comfy pajama pants out of an old bed sheet, as well as a cute little tote bag out of a curtain. Both of these I found at the thrift store and decided to use them for my first projects because even if I messed it up, I wouldn't be too bothered about it. Having gotten the fabric from the thrift store, it was not the expensive fabric that I'd gotten for other projects down the line. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how both of these turned out. I definitely have areas that I'm noting where I would like to sort of improve on for future projects, but both of them, you know, work really well. I've constantly been wearing the PJ pants and taking the tote bag just about everywhere. And I'm just really gratified and really proud of myself. And yeah, it's been bringing me a lot of joy. Another thing that has been bringing me a lot of joy is the garden this summer. For those of you who have been around for a little bit, you may know I've had some trouble with the garden for the past year plus. My dad and I manage a large garden in the backyard, and we had added raised beds and brought in all new dirt about a year and a half ago. And come to find out, the dirt that we had brought in is very low quality, unbeknownst to us. So we have struggled with that, worked to amend the soil for the past year or so, but last summer we had 50 tomato plants in the garden and not a single tomato came out of them. So we've had a huge turnaround this year where we are currently drowning in tomatoes, I feel like is an accurate way to describe it. We have a ton of tomatoes and it's been wonderful. We've also had a bunch of squash and beans and cucumbers, but I've really been enjoying not only the abundance coming out of the garden, but having the space again, dedicating myself to tending and helping grow things in that space. That has just been very therapeutic for me in many ways, and I'm very glad to have it back. I've really been enjoying focusing, majority of things that I've been eating and cooking recently on the produce that's coming out of the garden, and just really appreciating the abundance that is currently happening, but also getting to focus on sort of the seasonality of certain food and getting to really appreciate and love on the things that are currently very much in season, because they will not always be in season. And the final thing that has been really bringing me joy recently has been music. I have really been enjoying making myself and my friends mixtapes and playlists on Spotify. It has brought me so much joy recently, and in doing so I've come across a lot of new music that I am really loving at the moment. If you are interested, I will leave my Spotify linked in the doobly-doo and some of the playlists that I've been making that I'm really proud of and have really been enjoying. I feel like a good chunk of the music that I have been drawn to recently has been blues, soul, rock, eclectic rock, funk, music that is easily danced to, that puts a pep in your step. And the artists that I've come across or rediscovered that have really been doing it for me recently have been Sir Woman, Little Dragon, Sammy Ray and the Friends, Joe Hertler and the Rainbow Seekers, Oracle Sisters, and Zella Day. These have been sort of the artists that I've been gravitating to recently. Again, I will link some playlists in the doobly-doo. And then finally, the final artist that I have sort of not discovered, but come home to in a way, is Simon & Garfunkel. I grew up listening to a lot of Simon & Garfunkel. We had sort of a greatest hits CD of Simon & Garfunkel's songs at home that was played quite a bit. But I've really had fun sort of going and exploring their back catalog as an adult and listening to songs that I didn't grow up hearing. And I've come to realize that I think my favorite album by Simon & Garfunkel is Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. It doesn't have as many of the quote-unquote, big hit Simon & Garfunkel songs on there, but as an album, it's probably my favorite because I love and adore every single song on there. They are all sort of 5-star songs for me, if you will. And if you have not had the chance to listen to that entire album, I highly recommend that you go and check it out. But I think that is going to be it for me today, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video. I know it's a little bit different than my usual content, but I really enjoyed making this video and sort of chit-chatting about the things that are bringing me joy at the moment. If you want to, please tell me in the comments what are some things that are bringing you joy at the moment. If you've watched this far in the video, feel free to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It certainly helps me and my channel grow. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in my next video.